He said, no, I want you to beat them. He said, I'll give you $5,000 each if you beat either one of them. I said, well, that's getting tempting. He said, I'll pay for all of your costs for the bike trip if you'll go do it. And I said, wow, that sounds even better. And he said, I'll give you $10,000 for your kids in the Philippines at the orphanage if you'll do it. I said, I'm in. I might not have much left at 56 years old, but what did God ask the lady with the oil? He doesn't ask you to give what you don't have. We're not asking you today to give what you don't have. We're asking you to think about what you do have to offer. Time, money, your own expertise, discipling, whatever you can. By the way, Teddy, thanks for the free car. Forgot to tell you. I don't know how he makes any money. The guy's giving out free cars. Cadillac. Anyway. So now, all of a sudden, from riding a bike, that I said, all right, I'll give my bike riding to God. Lord, if you can use it, we have the opportunity, if I ride fast enough and long enough, to win $20,000 for the kids in a month. Nice work. Now, Karen, very excited about this. My wife is a saint. She takes me out every day from January to June to prepare for this ride, because that's a long way over the mountains and everything. And sometimes I'd ride 30 miles, 40, 50 miles, and then when I run out of gas, she'd pick me up, we'd go get something to eat and go home. And we trained for almost 6 months to do this, and doing the ministry and speaking as well. And she said, I think you can do this. I said, babe, I can do this. She said, no, I think you can do this. I said, babe, I can do this. And she was very nervous, so she flew me out to Astoria, Oregon, got me all set up, and she bought me everything that I need for this trip. And then we started, and every day we rode into the east. Every morning we rode into this beautiful sunrise, and I had my morning quiet time with the Lord on a bike every single day. What a way to live. Do you know we have the most magnificent country to ride across? And the first week I flew. I was going to get, well, I was behind the guys a couple of minutes, but you know, we had a long way to go. And they were younger guys getting excited at the beginning. And at the end of the week, I was thinking, I'm getting stronger. And I went to the Dairy Queen to get a milkshake. And we'd ridden 100 miles that day. I wanted a milkshake. It's not a big deal. In fact, I got 2. But a lady on Main Street in the end of Oregon going east hit me with her car by accident. It was an accident. She didn't do it on purpose. I flew through the air, landed on the cement. She hit me here and here. And I got up and I didn't know what was going to happen. And she wanted to take me to the hospital. And I said, well, maybe I better. I went to the hospital. I had 2 broken ribs and a dislocated shoulder. Now, if you've played professional sport, that is not a tragedy. It's just a little time off. And so I asked the doctor, can I still ride my bike? He said, why would you want to do that? I told him what I was doing. He goes, out of the question, it's going to hurt. I said, is it going to do anything more than hurt? And he said, well, you can't fall on it. I said, I'm planning on falling again. He said, well, I'll give you some pain pills and you can, I wouldn't recommend it. I said, but okay, so I went back and the head of the race said, Tom, unless the doctor says, I said, here's the doctor's okay, the pain pills, if I can do it. He said, you're going to have to sign all. I said, I'll sign anything. I'm not going to sue anybody. I just want to get this 20 grand for my kids. I called my wife. I said, babe, we're in trouble a little bit. She goes, you're hurt. I said, how do you know? She said, I've been married to you 35 years. I know when you're hurt. I said, I dislocated my shoulder. It's back. I broke a couple ribs. Can you ride? My wife is not an athlete. She doesn't know. She just watched me play professional basketball, and I played with broken fingers, toes. You know how it is. She said, can you do it? I said, babe, I don't know. And usually my wife says, well, let's retire. Or, let's do so. It's okay. My wife just babies me all the time. Do you know what she said to me? She said, you get your butt on that bike, you take a pain pill, and you get over those mountains. Babe, what are you talking about? She said, Tom, I wrote to all the world on our email and Facebook, and she said, please pray for Tom. He could earn $20,000 on a bike ride to the Mississippi. Please pray for him. People didn't read that way. They read it, oh, Tom's raising money for the kids in the Philippines. We'd like to take part. That's not what we intended or she meant at all. But she said, Tom, we have $275,000 pledged if you make it to the Mississippi. I said, are you kidding me? I said, I'm feeling better already. That's the question. God isn't asking you what you don't have, asking you what you have to give. Yeah, I have a problem. But I have a passion for my kids. I love my kids and the kids that I'm taking in. And I thought, 200 and some thousand? Are you kidding me? I got on the bike next day. You know what happened? 4 men waited for me. Because I wasn't doing too good. And they said, Tom, you're riding with us. We're going to keep up with those 2 young guys. We know what you're doing. And they drafted me that 100 miles that day and the next day and the next day. And you know when we hit the Grand Tetons, those 2 young fellas, I don't think they'd played much sport in their life. They jumped off their bike halfway up the Grand Teton Pass, signed the $5,000 checks and gave them to me, and got on the plane and went home. And I got to the top of the pass and got over the mountains and got to the Mississippi River. The problem is on the way, Karen kept calling me, and every day she said, Tom, there's more, and there's more. And which one did I fill you up with? And there's more. And she said, God is really filling our oil. He's filling our... I said, what do you mean? 375,000, 576,000, 620,000. I got to the Mississippi and she's waiting for me in the car. And I was the first one in. I dipped my wheel and she got out of the car and she gave me a big hug and she whispered in my ear, $973,000, almost $1 million came in. Almost $1 million US. Who get that $1 million? God did. Let me hear it one time. Who got the $1 million? God did. Who uses FCA? God does. Don't get too excited about ourselves. He uses all these great men and women. But it's God who does it. I was looking for 20 grand. It's a lot of money. We built 5 orphanages, 5 schools, on 2 Christian camps, a bunch of pastors' homes, some believers' places that had to be reconstructed, and we still have money left over. We still have oil left over. We don't have enough time, or I would show you my trick all day long. Here's what I know, and since I didn't speak as long as I was gonna, I'm gonna give you a discount, okay? My wife and I and my kids, we want to commit our expenses and our honorarium back to FCA, okay? Now we know we won't get a blessing because we told you, but we got other things we can do. Because I am so excited about this many people who show up at the first meeting for an FCA forming in this area like this. We want to be a part of it too. We love kids. We just love kids. And if you could use some of ours for the pizzas, we think that's a great idea. Okay? You got it. All my kids love Jesus. I have seen their life transformed, not because we took them in and fed them, yeah, that changed them. Not because we loved them, that changed them, because they came to know Jesus. Just remember, our purpose in this room is to know Jesus, and our kids and these young people to know Jesus, because that's what changes their lives. Don't forget that part. And if you can take part, if you can give $10, you give $10. If you can give 10 minutes, you give 10 minutes. It doesn't matter. God wants you to give what you have, not what you have not. He wants you to give what you have, not what you have not. And He will bless it. In my life, I gave him a life of a guy who could run for a long time and play basketball. And 2,000 games later, I shared my faith every one of those games. Whether it's on TV, with the newspaper, with another player, it was a small thing given to God that He magnified. FCA was a small thing, and now look at it. Heck, I hope it goes worldwide. Bless each one of you. And if you've already done these things, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, jump in there. Jump in there for Christ. And if you don't know Christ and you're in this room, please, I'm going to be here. You want to talk to me? I'd love to share how you can know Christ and have a life-changing experience yourself. We're worried about you first, then these kids.
You've learned that FCA has a presence beginning here in this Inland Empire area, and actually around the nation. There's 7,500 campuses now with an FCA presence. Almost 500,000 kids last year got involved, and we have sort of an organization chart. I'm about to introduce you to a gentleman here who's part of that. Mark Boyer is the Western Region VP for FCA. He grew up in Huntington Beach, and he attended Edison High School, where he played football before going on to USC, where he played for 4 years. Mark was drafted by the Indianapolis Colts. Mark has also played for the New York Jets before retiring and returning to Huntington Beach. Mark and his lovely wife, Jana, have 4 daughters, 1 son, 3 grandchildren. Mark was hired to this position of Regional Vice President 2 years ago and is responsible for California, Nevada, and Hawaii. Please give a big Inland Empire warm welcome to Mark Boyer.